Joe kept singing this song, and I was like, what is that song? And you're like, don't you remember? It's from Freaky Friday.
Don't wanna get it. Da, 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 da. Yeah.
Take me away.
Hi, I'm Allison.
Hi, I'm Joe.
And this is Queer Cinema Catch Up, the podcast where we catch up with films, TV shows, and miscellaneous topics through a queer lens and with one another. We're long lost neighbors turned roommates who are both queer and love movies. Today, we're actually joined by a special guest, Cassie from Sassy Grilled Cheese. Hey, Cassie.
Hey, how's it going? I'm super excited to be here.
And we're excited to have Cassie here to talk about the movie Freaky Friday.
That's right.
The 2003 Disney movie.
So Freaky Friday, as Joe mentioned, is a 2003 fantasy comedy directed by Mark Waters, screenplay written by Heather Hatch and Leslie Dixon. And it was actually based on the original Freaky Friday was a novel from 1972. But that, crazily enough, may have been influenced by a book from the 1800s called Vice Versa, A Lesson to Fathers. And so this is a very old story. The original origin story for this Lindsay Lohan version was that the president of Buena Vista Motion Pictures approached producer Andrew Gunn and said, I want you to make a film for me. And then he was like, I either want to do Witch Mountain or Freaky Friday. But then Princess Diaries came out and was so successful that the idea of like a mother-daughter film or a film written for girls and their moms obviously was going to be potentially very lucrative and successful. So then they decided to go for Freaky Friday.
The thing is, I haven't seen this movie in so long until yesterday. Anytime I revisit movies from my childhood, I always go into it assuming that it's going to be worse than I thought it was. I don't know if you two had this experience rewatching the movie again, but I was watching it like, this is a really good movie.
Mm-hmm.
I had a sense it was going to hold up just because like I felt more attached to it than other films.
Yeah, like as you were saying, Casey, like it definitely, like in my opinion too, like really holds up. And I think it's all because of, and we'll get into it, like Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis, like they just knock it out of the park.
Yeah, the mother-daughter chemistry that they had on screen was just like so undeniably good.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that you don't really expect from that time. And also like I saw it in 2003, but I was maybe 6 years old at the time.
It's hard to really digest at 6 years old.
Yeah, I feel like I was the exact right age, like probably a little bit younger than Lindsay's character is supposed to be. And so to me, it was like a template of what high school might look like. Or, you know, if I happen to swap bodies with my mom, what that might be like.
So did you feel like the parenting dynamic was accurate for the time based on your experiences growing up?
I mean, because it's a movie, the teens are breaking the rules and I wasn't really breaking a lot of rules. And so in that sense, I don't know if I could like map my own life onto it.
The reason why I asked, because one thing that stood out was when Jamie Lee Curtis shut off the lights while they were playing in the garage.
Oh,
and I'm thinking like, would my mom ever would have done that? No, she would just yell at me in the garage.
I feel like my mom would definitely, she does listen. She's going to be like, I would never do that. But I feel like she would turn the lights off.
I think there's an element of Freaky Friday that's cartoonish, as emotionally grounded as it is. Like, how many times do people get tackled in this movie? Like, a lot of this movie I didn't take as, like, literally, like, I kind of took it more as just, like, an exaggerated form of, like, the parenting dynamic. And this is a Disney movie, so it is, I'd say, like, a more, like, kids-oriented movie that can be enjoyed by adults also. But it's like you have, like, one of the first scenes is Lindsay Lohan won't get out of bed, and Jamie's, like, grabbing Lindsay, and she's holding on to the, like, bedpost, and she's being, like, held in the air. And so I just think it's just, like, this exaggerated form of parenting that I really enjoy, because it just shows you like very early on that clearly there's like something brewing between Lindsay and her mom, and they're really having a rough time like seeing eye to eye on things. And so like her going into the garage, shutting off the lights, pulling her out of bed, like all these really like exaggerated, like cartoonish moments that I personally didn't experience in my childhood.
Well, another thing that I really liked about all that is like a lot of times when it comes to these movies where they show like a teenager, like a mom, like one side or the other is in the wrong.
Right.
And I think I loved that in this movie, they were both kind of misunderstood.
Yes, I agree. And I think it's why it's so powerful.
Yeah, that made their character arcs much more meaningful in the end.
I think that's a big departure from my understanding. I did see the original. There's been several versions of Freaky Friday, but the one with Jodie Foster. I was a kid when I saw it, and I was mostly like intrigued by, I had already seen Freaky Friday with Lindsay Lohan. I really wanted to go rent this from Blockbuster and kind of compare it, which is a very 2000 story.
Oh my God, I love Blockbuster. Had some good memories there. Rest in peace.
Hey, there's still one in Bend, Oregon.
I'm not going there, but
Have you been?
I haven't actually been to the Blockbuster there.
Joe goes to Bend a lot, so actually now I kind of am upset.
at the same time, though, I'm like, as much as I am nostalgic for Blockbuster, it was very much for its time. Like with streaming and stuff, it is way too inconvenient for me to leave the house and rent a movie.
The only thing I do miss about it, though, is I feel like I can get such analysis paralysis in trying to pick something off of streaming, and in Blockbuster, you kind of just have to eventually decide.
Yeah, we're totally digressing.
I know.
Yeah.
What was some of your favorite things about Freaky Friday when you rewatched it?
I'll tell you what Allison didn't like.
Oh, we have some tea.
What didn't I like?
Throughout the entire movie, you'll
Oh,
laugh.
I know exactly what it is. Okay, so the thing that really bothered me, the bleached streaks in Lindsay Lohan's beautiful hair.
Oh, you know what? I can actually explain why they had that. Lindsay wanted to be blonde so bad. And she was arguing back and forth with her team at the time because they're like, no, like you need to stay a redhead. That's like what makes you the most marketable. Everybody loves your red hair.
Mhm.
And I almost want to say that the highlights is something that she just did and didn't tell anyone.
I feel like you resisted for a while, but then once the cap was off, every time we cut to Lindsay, you'd be like, oh, just that hair, that hair.
I love seeing beautiful hair, and so especially because I know how pretty her hair is in real life, it
was so accurate though, because I feel like so many teenagers have done so many shitty things to their hair and did not get any kind of guidance while doing so, you know? So I feel like it's a very accurate thing for her character to do.
I love just how it like fits so well into that time, and just like being a teenager and just making wild choices and trying to lash out in any way you can. And it sounds like Lindsay was trying to lash out in real life too.
Yeah, I like how it kind of dovetailed. But no, I think I really liked, so when I first moved to LA, Joe kept singing this song, and I was like, what is that song? And you're like, don't you remember? It's from Freaky Friday. And then you actually put it on YouTube.
Which now I can't remember what it is. How does it go?
Oh gosh.
Is it the one that they sing at the concert?
Yeah, the concert song.
I wanna get it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Take me away.
The second he played that scene, and this was like 2 years ago, I felt like filled with nostalgia because I just remember how touched I was as a kid watching it and seeing Jamie Lee Curtis, but really the daughter, playing the song for the mom. So I love that part, and I love the I mean, obviously, I feel like the most emotional parts, the parts I love, like at the end when they're doing the toast and how like heartfelt it is and how they both understand one another.
There was one thing that did semi-bug me.
Yeah.
Lindsay Lohan on the stage, and she's like looking like a deer in the headlights, and Jamie Lee Curtis is playing in the background. If you were in the audience on that day, would you buy that?
No. Especially when I love Lindsay Lohan's like dance moves.
She's like, everybody was fooled.
They were really into it.
Jamie Lee Curtis looks so fucking badass in that scene though. And like her outfit, she's like rocking out with her guitar, her haircut, like everything was
both
just.
did guitar lessons, although it's not really them playing in that scene.
I wouldn't think so.
Unfortunately. So in terms of casting, it was supposed to be Annette Bening and then Michelle Trachtenberg.
I could have seen.
I see that, yeah.
They wouldn't let Michelle participate because she was on Buffy at the time. And then Annette, they really, really, really wanted it to be Annette Bening. Like, I think like very quickly before shooting was supposed to start, she also dropped out.
6 days before filming.
6 days.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
To go in knowing that and seeing Jamie Lee work her fucking ass off.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So then the director, he was like, I think what worked the best in this movie was that both Jamie Lee and Lindsay Lohan had excellent chemistry, and they both had this kind of aggressive.
Well, you believe that they're mother and daughter.
Yeah, especially when everyone was saying the script wasn't so strong.
It was strong, though.
I agree.
It wasn't really about what their characters were saying. It was how they were saying it. So like at the end, Jamie Lee Curtis is giving her speech as Lindsay Lohan's character, given the context of all the information that the viewers gathered throughout the entire movie. And you know that that's not really Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yes.
I think that's why it doesn't really matter that the script was bare bones. I think that's what made it so good.
I agree. And then I also, this is kind of a tangent, but I also read a funny story. So this was Lindsay's first on-screen kiss in a movie.
Really?
And so on the day of, they were telling Chad Michael Murray, you know, this is Lindsay's first kiss. You really got to make her comfortable. And he was like, I don't know, like, I'm not really like an expert at this. I haven't done it that many times. And then Jamie Lee was on set and she was like, Lindsay, it's totally fine. You could just kiss him right now before we even start. It'll make you feel so much better. And she was kind of still a little bit nervous. And then Jamie Lee Curtis kissed Chad Michael Murray.
Oh. Oh, the 2000s.
I will say, like, we've been complimenting Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan a lot, but I feel like Chad Michael Murray, like, I truly believe when like he like falls in love with Lindsay in the beginning of the movie, and then when they switch bodies, he falls in love with Jamie Lee Curtis, and I was like convinced. I just was like, I like understood it. That's like part of the core of what makes this work.
He understood the assignment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like he kind of gets overshadowed by the other actors, but he's definitely like an excellent supporting character and like helping you in the believability that he like loves the person.
If they weren't doing a sequel to Freakier Friday or whatever they're going to call it, and they were doing another remake, if they would do something like that today, because I think people are much more sensitive and aware of and how that might be problematic. But in the context of the film and with the performances, it does feel very real, very grounded.
I think it's essential for the movie.
Yeah, I do too.
And the reason why, it's supposed to highlight that Jamie Lee Curtis's character isn't really her. It's Lindsay Lohan.
Yes.
She's a teenager.
Yeah, and that's why I think it has a really good message where it's like this boy who seems, the mom that first is wary of him because he's got a motorcycle, he seems like a bad boy, but he actually genuinely likes Lindsay for her personality, right? And I feel like that comes across in the fact that he falls in love when she's not in her body and then she's in a much older body. I think that's awesome.
Also, I was dying laughing when Chad Michael Murray was like standing outside the house.
Wasn't it See You Hit Me Baby One More Time?
Yeah.
It was just so funny. And then she tackles him.
And going back to the fact that this is Lindsay Lohan's first kiss.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of makes me sad. Her first kiss and first on-screen kiss is like her portraying Jamie Lee Curtis, and it isn't like reciprocated. Like she has to like physically like grab.
They kiss again at the end too.
But the first kiss is like they're in the bushes and she like smooches him.
Oh, in the movie. Yeah.
I think it's interesting. Wasn't Hilary Duff also in consideration for being in Freaky Friday?
There's so many people.
Oh my gosh. Hilary
and
Duff.
It sparked a feud because eventually Chad Michael Murray would star in
a Cinderella story.
Cinderella story starring Hilary Duff.
I was just on a plane. Somebody was watching that on the plane and I was kind of peeking.
And you were like, turn that off. I'm on team Lindsay Lohan.
Hilary Duff, my favorite singer, actress, everything. I was 7 years old. Metamorphosis was my first CD that I ever bought.
Oh my gosh.
Went to her concert. She is the single most untalented singer and actress that ever existed in that time frame. I think the fact that she is so untalented makes her more relatable.
It's really funny you say that because on the plane, it was her and Chad Michael Murray sending messages over the internet, and she was she's like. Like it was just really like it just really seemed like something that I at 14 years old would have done if I was acting.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
But I think that's what works. She seems like someone like me, you know.
La 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 la.
What's that from?
Oh my God. Raise your voice. I just did Cadet Kelly on my channel and I watched Christy Carlson Romano talk about how she was on set with Hilary Duff at the time of Cadet Kelly. And she was talking about how Hilary Duff was super nice. She was very humble. And so I don't know. I just envision, I don't know Hilary Duff, obviously. I just envision Hilary Duff just kind of going with the flow and just it accidentally working out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lindsay Lohan, in comparison, was a really good actress. She was put into her roles, not only because she was pretty, but because she acts so well. She has such good chemistry with the people that are on set. It's like two very different career paths that they had, I believe. But it's interesting that Hilary Duff and Lindsay had this feud. I think it was over Aaron Carter or something.
Yeah.
I pulled this up 20 years ago. Lindsay Lohan crashed the premiere of Cheaper by the Dozen to get back at Hilary Duff for crashing her Freaky Friday premiere. I loved both. I adored Lindsay and I adored Hilary. I had no idea that there was a feud.
We like grew up as teenagers when like Freaky Friday came out. I mean, I think you were like 12, I was 13. And I was like somewhat aware of the feud of like between Lindsay Lohan and Hilary Duff.
Hilary was the good girl, right? And then Lindsay was kind of the bad girl.
I mean, it was just a really especially nasty time, celebrity culture, just like just like the gossip magazines would just be so like awful and like
we joke about it, but it really was bad.
Especially like Lindsay Lohan was just being like consumed by the media.
Yeah.
I think that Hilary Duff seemed to, I mean, this is based off of nothing but speculation, but it seemed like she got married, she had like kids, she was like going the family route, whereas like Lindsay Lohan kind of had like a darker like spin.
It's interesting you bring that up and just like how tabloid culture shaped these women. Hilary had a better experience on a surface level because she seemed to have a more solid foundation in terms of her support system.
Well, absolutely, yeah.
And she simply just didn't want to go partying and do different things. I think that Lindsay was put on such a high pedestal, being like the Disney girl, put in all these movies while she was still in high school. Like she was in high school when she was in Mean Girls. Her school picture was taken while she was filming these movies.
That's wild to think that.
Instead, she was partying with older women, and then that she was painted as like this horrible person by the media. So I could understand why she felt a little defiant.
And also Lindsay Lohan had feuds with like Paris Hilton. I think Paris Hilton was recently on like Watch What Happens Live when like Lindsay Lohan like announced her pregnancy. Paris Hilton reached out to her and they kind of like cleared the air there. So I think there's like hopefully a lot of these women are on like a path to healing, and I'm really happy to see that.
It's so amazing to see Lindsay come out of all this. And I think the only person we can give credit to that is Lindsay, because we don't support celebrities during the relapse. We don't support people when they need it the most. So, I mean, it's just so impressive to me that she was able to come back and then come back on Disney after all that. After what, in my view, they turned her back on her.
I just watched the Demi Lovato documentary Child Star.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet.
It was very good. Christina Ricci was in it. Raven was in it.
JoJo again invented K-pop.
She got screwed over too really bad.
JoJo Siwa.
JoJo Siwa?
Oh, JoJo. JoJo wasn't in it.
No, not JoJo. Okay, yeah, like you're showing your age now.
Get out.
Get out, brother. You're like, yeah, JoJo.
Wait, did you review Aquamarine?
I love
you
that.
reviewed that one, right?
I don't want to talk about it.
But yeah, one thing I wanted to just like close the loop on was with the documentary did a really good job of explaining how, yes, sometimes parents force their kids into the limelight, but sometimes it's the kid who says, I really want to be an actor, and they're the ones who are pushing it. And there's no one telling the families, okay, well, this is what's going to be like and how you can support your child in these environments, whether or not the parent has malicious intent or they just are kind of going along with what their kid wants. And there's no education around like the psychological needs of somebody who's suddenly very famous and still developing as a kid.
It's really sad.
What I liked about this one was there's definitely a call to action and like a desire to, again, a clear point of view on what we could be doing differently.
Alison Stoner is a huge advocate on that end. Well, I really think that the people that put these protections in place for child actors should be ex-child actors.
Yeah, that's that's a great
it's
point.
Like these people are the only people that could understand
what they need,
what child actors need, compared to some rich dude.
Who's like how can we split up the money so that we still make out a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But my next topic, well, I don't really know how to segue into this, but I do feel like the one thing that we also talked about as we were watching this, the magic of the Switch, which is not in the original. And this movie adds in an element where it's like a fortune cookie and a mom and daughter.
Yes, very controversial.
Who own a Chinese restaurant. Yes. And so my reaction was like, this feels very racist and relying on tropes. And I don't think they would have written it this way today. I bet they're going to have to somehow address that in the new one.
So I think that the fortune cookie trope itself is a little bit of a gray line.
Yeah.
It kind of bleeds into how Hollywood uses characters that are from like a different country and views them as like exotic or whatever. So I think that could be a little like iffy. The characters themselves, I thought were funny. I thought they were enjoyable. I really loved the older lady, and she's like giving them the fortune cookie. She like wants them to eat it, and then when they're like, "Oh no, thanks," she starts like yelling at them in Cantonese. Like I think that's hilarious. You know what I mean? But it can be viewed in a negative way, having these characters exist as like these magical beings. I'm curious to know how people that come from an Asian background feel about that scene.
The woman who played the daughter, she had a really interesting quote about this. And actually, to read the full quote, it was, I would kill to remake Freaky Friday. I don't love remakes usually, but this one would be really fun because there's so many things you can do with it. I do hope they keep the sort of mystical and, of course, the Chinese element into it. I don't see anything wrong with it. It's not like we were evil. We were really trying to help. I can't think of one bad memory of doing that movie, not one. I mean, that's pretty damn good. So I feel like that does, it complicates it, where like it does feel problematic the way they're like using another culture to create magic, but then to hear her perspective on it, it's like, well, her voice should matter the most. So
yeah, because I also went into it like being concerned on how that came across, and just like you don't want them like using mysticism to like help the white people.
They would have helped anyone though.
Yeah. And I like that it was a mom and daughter.
I like the mom and daughter connection. Yeah. And I do think that they like tried to like give them some characterization just aside from the fact that they're...
Maybe they could have had a bigger role, and maybe that's what they'll do with the sequel. I feel like they will.
But I mean, she's also not the only person of Asian descent. So I'm sure other people have
different viewpoints.
When they will, yeah. I have to think about like as a queer person, like watching different queer media, like we don't all have the same like opinion on a queer movie, right? Like that, because we're all different.
We are?
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
This brings me to ask, what do you think Freakier Friday will be about? And then 2, if they weren't doing a sequel and we were remaking Freaky Friday for our own time, what would it focus on, or what should it focus on?
Whoa. They have told us a little bit of the synopsis where Lindsay Lohan is now a mom. And now it's a question of, will it just be Lindsay and Jamie Lee Curtis switching bodies, or will it be like the 3 of them switching bodies?
I think it's multiple people.
In my personal opinion, I just want it to be Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis switching bodies, and I don't want it to be between also her daughter.
I think that's what's going to happen.
I saw something where maybe there is a 3rd swap happening, and I read that it might have something to do with millennial helicopter parents, and so perhaps Jamie Lee's character disagrees with Lindsay's parenting style.
I could totally see that happening.
I hope so. Otherwise, I don't think there'd be much of a story. Yeah. Like Beetlejuice came out not too long ago. Some of the most compelling parts of that movie was exploring the dynamic between Catherine O'Hara and Winona Ryder's characters, analyzing how now Winona is a parent to her daughter. And I think that was like the most compelling part. So I really hope they
lean into that
in Freakier Friday.
I agree.
And then what was question 2?
Just like, okay, so instead of it being Freakier Friday, if we were going to remake again Freaky Friday with, like, who would you cast? How would you make it new for 2024 as opposed to the 2003 version? One thing I forgot to mention earlier was like the 70s movie told from Jodie's point of view. Like, it wasn't as balanced.
I love that in the first movie, like seeing it from both sides, not just limited to one view.
Agreed.
There's like this fixation on like House of Blues. I had like a lot of friends that like were like fixated on becoming like musicians, or they were like really fascinated with like a specific band. They like wanted to be in a band. I don't know if they like had their eyes set on playing a House of Blues. I don't know why they're so obsessed, because that kind of feels like an oldie thing to kind of want.
I lived in Orlando, and there was a House of Blues that I went to all the time.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, they have like different locations.
Are you a musician?
No. I was just in college. I went to film school in Orlando. I just went to some concerts at the House of Blues every now and then. I saw Porter Robinson there, which was really cool. I can't remember who else I saw, but I was like 18. If they made Freaky Friday today, which I feel like it shouldn't be touched, like just leave it alone. But if they did, I think that social media would definitely be more heavily involved, like in this hypothetical version. Who would be casted? Hear me out. This is going to be a very bold statement.
Whoa.
Natasha Lyonne as the mom.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, yeah.
Chappell Roan
as
the Anna.
My gosh. Now, would the Freaky Friday remake with Chappell Roan have her music in it?
She would be a musician. So she'd like play music with her band, but it wouldn't have like Good Luck Babe in it.
What about Pink Pony Club?
I would want a queer daughter or son.
Oh, okay.
What I love about this version of Freaky Friday is it's a non-traditional family, because they're bringing in a new dad into the family. And I feel like they do a really good job of, I think the quote from Lindsay in the movie, or from Jamie Lee, but it's Lindsay, this could be part of a new family, its own kind of cool new little unit. Like the idea of like found family or new concepts of family. I feel like they could push that even further with like a queer element, or maybe it's like a mixed race family or whatever it might be.
But yeah, that's an interesting. I didn't really think about have an LGBT plus element to that, but that's an interesting point that you bring up.
I think it's like interesting, but then to like body swap with like a parent who isn't like queer or gay, I guess they'll see like through their child's perspective of what they're like experiencing in life. But then I don't know, it's like just difference because it's like a mind of attraction.
Yeah.
But it would work just like it does in this movie, where they switch. The mom in Lindsay Lohan's body doesn't like Chad Michael Murray. She's not like attracted to him.
Yeah, that's a good point. But then it'd be a little weird because like then the hypothetical Chad Michael Murray would be like super in love with the dad. And
which that is speaking to sexuality can be really fluid.
Hey. I just feel like there'd be a lot to play.
No. I think
there are, yeah.
And then also like I feel like a lot of times today, because like in the 2000s, as you're aware, like the only movie that we only had like a few movies that were LGBT plus. Like we had the Brokeback Mountain and what was the other one with Natasha Lyonne? She's like, but I'm a cheerleader. Like, I don't know.
I'm a cheerleader. Yeah.
There was a few movies, but there wasn't really
True.
Now it's like I feel like there's a lot more like representation, but it's always like forced, or it's like that's like the whole point of their characters, and it's not meaningful. So I think to your point, like if there was a hypothetical Freaky Friday movie too that had a queer element to it, that seems like a meaningful way to have a queer character.
Yeah,
You know
it's
what I mean?
it's like part of the story. It's not the story. The story is that mom and daughter aren't getting along and they're swapping places, or father and son, whatever it would be. And there just happens to be one of the characters is queer. You know, I think that could be really
interesting.
cool.
Like, what would we categorize these like Aquamarine, Freaky Friday,
Pink movies.
Pink movies?
Yeah,
I call them pink movies.
I like that. Yeah.
I just like hyper feminine, like
girl movies.
I feel like a lot of like pink movies can be really enjoyable, but like you don't have to watch it necessarily for like strong acting. And that's what makes watching Lindsay Lohan in a pink movie such a treat, is because she's like so strong. And like you were saying, when she gives that speech at the end of the movie, like you just like feel the emotion and just the power of the acting.
Absolutely. And one thing that's very, that I haven't brought up, one thing that's very unique about Lindsay Lohan's acting is her resting bitch face. That is so relatable. I don't know, it just adds to the dialogue and like how the plot is playing out. It's just
that's a really interesting point. They especially utilize that in Mean Girls, where it's like, and it wasn't someone like brought it to my attention. Lindsay Lohan's the star of the movie, but in Mean Girls specifically, she's the straight man and like observing all like the chaos around her.
Straight man.
In terms of, we've got the comedy coming from the Gretchen character, the Karen character, and then we've got Rachel McAdams, who's the larger than life character, and Katie is the character that's kind of coming in, fish out of water, having calm reactions to everything until she steps into the mean girl role.
So like Katie's like, oh, we're celebrating. Zencastr was like, excellent description. But yeah, like Lindsay Lohan's like thrown into this world and she's like observing everything and she's like the eye for the audience of being like, look how like bizarre everyone's behaving, until like she eventually like succumbs to it. Whereas I feel like Freaky Friday, she like does that to a degree, but I feel like she's like just as like energized.
They
and,
have very distinct point of views.
So is the metaphor like a straight man walking into a gay bar and being like, look at all these crazy people?
That's the reason for the word.
I think it comes from comedy. It's like in a comedic scene, there's usually like the person who's unusual, larger than life, going with the bit, and then what's funny is to see that played off against the straight man of the person. Like if you think about in Seinfeld is the straight man, like the one who's just like,
oh, okay, I get what you're saying.
These crazy people, and then everybody. That's kind of what it means.
Okay, I was just curious. I never heard that before.
Are there like body swap movies that you can think of off the top of your head outside of Freaky Friday?
17 again.
Oh yeah,
I haven't watched that recently. I remember liking it.
13 going on 30.
13, yes.
I'm sorry, Joe. We have to talk about this. He's never seen 13 going on 30.
I haven't seen 13 going on 30. I haven't seen 17 again.
Well, if you're going to pick one, you have to watch 13 going on 30.
13 going on 30.
That one is legitimately such a fun movie to watch.
It's lovely. We need to cue it up right now so you can see it.
Yes. And oh my gosh, that scene, I cried. And you know which scene I'm talking about.
The Michael Jackson Thriller dance scene.
Yeah, that's the scene I'm talking. No, the Billy Joel scene.
Billy Joel's in the movie?
No, he's not in the movie, but there's a song that plays.
Piano Man.
Not Piano Man.
Stop trying to guess.
It's Vienna.
How does that song go?
Slow down, you crazy child.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful song. Does 13 going on 30 fall into like a Pink movie?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Definitely. It is like top 5.
I was always like confused by that, as like, I think it came out when I was 13. I was like, who wants to be 30?
I did have that same thought. I had that,
and now I look at it, I'm like, 30. What a young person.
I guess I feel like I didn't so much think of it as old as much as I thought it didn't sound fun to be 30. So I couldn't really understand why somebody would want to be 30.
Being 30 was very different in 2004 than it is today, though. Life financially moved a lot quicker, like the family element and everything. Now, however, we take our time. Not always by choice.
Yeah. Now it'd be 13 going on 55.
Exactly.
Now that's a movie I want to see.
Yeah, exactly. I was always thinking like, oh, when I'm in my 50s, I'm going to be old and I'm going to order off the 55 plus menu at IHOP. And just, my parents are in their 50s. Mm-hmm. And they are like living their best lives. I'm excited to be in my 50s.
I think it's interesting. And I wonder if it happens with the younger generations too. But it's like, as my parents age, and my parents are a little older than your parents, I always just kind of like push the threshold of what
Old
like
is.
an old person is. Now for me, I'm like, you know, like 75 is when you start to think of your parents as old. Like I just keep like pushing it up.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I feel like, you know, as long as you approach life with zest and excitement and you're looking ahead,
I strive every day to be a zesty person.
like maybe your body won't let you do as much as you get older, but youth is a mindset.
Youth is a mindset, yeah.
But I'm also 28, so I mean,
That's young,
Still
yes.
a young man.
Do we have any like parting thoughts on Freaky Friday? What do you think it's a classic that will withstand the test of time?
absolutely.
Yes, without a doubt.
Will you show it to your future children?
If I choose
Yes.
to have them, yes.
Yes, I mean, to Joe's point, yeah, if I decide to have children, I think it really is timeless because I think that the story about the strict mom and the rebellious daughter is always going to be relatable in some form.
Totally.
And Freaky Friday is kind of like a time capsule of cultural elements.
It's both a time capsule and it's timeless at the same time, and that's a rare combination. And I also love it, Joe.
Even with the chunky highlights and all.
No, cut those.
I didn't mind the chunky
She has
highlights.
such beautiful hair.
Casey, thank you so much for coming on the show. Could you please just plug quickly where we can find you again?
You can find me on YouTube at Sassy Grilled Cheese or at your local dumpster, wherever you decide to find me. Love making videos and talking to people who make videos.
As do we. And thank you so much for joining and chatting about Freaky Friday with us. It was a blast.
So excited for the second one to come out.
Yeah,
Same.
Freakier
We'll
Friday.
reconvene for Freakier Friday.
Queer Cinema Catch Up is a podcast where we talk about movies, TV, and miscellaneous topics through a queer lens. I'm Joe.
And I'm Allison.
And I'm Casey.
Thank you so much for listening.
And goodbye.